Good evening. It's Brother Jamie. It's a pleasure to be with you again this afternoon. We're going to continue on in our Mount Bethel Sunday evening service online for now, as you know, if you've been following us for a while. Um, we are in message number 8 in our End Time series, and the title of this evening's message is The Mark of the Beast. We're going to look at this and we're going to approach it like we have with every other topic. We're going to do our very best, try to be led of the Lord, try to research it and be informed, but I just want you to know that I don't have all the exhaustive answers myself. So, Revelation 13, 16 through 18, he, being the false prophet, causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark of the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. Okay, so let's kind of go into this and kind of unpackage it a little bit. What is this mark? The word used in the passage for the mark is the Greek word charagma. In antiquity, this word was usually associated with the Roman emperor. It often contained the emperor's name, his image, and the year of his reign. It was necessary for buying and selling and was required to be affixed to documents to attest to their validity. It can mean a stamp, a brand, a tattoo, a mark. It has kind of all these meanings. During the tribulation, we know that every living person will be required to take the beast, the Antichrist mark. As in the days of Rome, it will be the only way to function in society. The mark of the beast could be something very similar to the Verichip technology, and I want to show you this picture here of the Verichip itself. This technology is about the size, a little larger than a grain of rice, but it's an RFID chip, and it lays dormant most of the time, but then when a scanner comes across it, it's activated, and it has all this information on it. It has been designed as for medical purposes, so when one goes into a clinic or a hospital, or they're incapacitated in an emergency room situation, they would run a scanner over this, and they would have all of that person's medical information. But think about it this way, this Verichip here, this technology we're talking about, it's not much different from the technology of the cell phone. I want you to think about all that your phone does. It monitors your movements. If you've allowed and gave permission to all these, and you better be careful, because it definitely will. If you don't turn it off, it will automatically do it. It monitors our movements, our purchases, our conversations. I want you to think about this with this listening technology. For you to be able to say, "Okay, Google," or "Okay, Siri," and for that piece of technology to respond, it's listening and monitoring everything that you say all the time. Think about how many times you've spoken about something, some type of purchase or something that you're thinking about getting, and then next thing you know, on Facebook or on some other online format, an ad for that shows up. It's because of this monitoring technology that's in our phones and in the hardware of our tablets, computers, and all of this. It listens to our conversations. If we have, any more, you can pay remotely. If you go into a store, you have the Apple Pay. You have everything loaded onto your phone. You just scan it, and it will immediately pay for your purchases. All of this is not a far stretch. So basically what it boils down to is all of this technology would be reduced down to and placed into this chip. And with this chip, you would be able to buy and sell, purchase and trade. They would have all of your information. It would not be complicated to put a GPS tracking chip into this to monitor the movements and know where everyone's at. And think about it like this. If you don't know better, if you didn't know that this was, something evil and something that Satan was going to use, if I came along and I told you how it could be used for, if you or your children, if you were hurt in a car wreck and you were unconscious and your children needed treatment and your child is highly allergic to penicillin, this chip would be able to notify the medical personnel of that. If your child was kidnapped and something happened to them, you would be able to locate this chip in their body and know exactly where they're at. You could really see how it would be easily marketable if we didn't know that it would end up being used for something evil. So you can see how the masses, just the ease and convenience of it and kind of the safety of having something like that. But we know that this could very well be used as the mark of the beast. Revelation 14:9-11 says, "A third angel followed those, saying with a loud voice, 'If anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark on his forehead or on his hand, he himself also shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out full strength into the cup of his indignation. He shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of that torment ascends forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night who worship the beast and his image,' and notice here, 'whoever receives the mark of his name.'" So we kind of see what this technology could look like. I'm not telling you that this is exactly what it is, but I believe it is something that will continue to develop. And when the time is right, it will be quite obvious that that's what it is. But it'll be along in the same family as this type of technology. I'm sure it'll just be more enhanced. First time that I heard of much of this was back in like 2004, I think was when I saw that NBC had first said something and had some type of coverage on this type of technology. So it's been around for years. There was a pretty big outcry against it by religious people and just by the citizens. They were scared of it, and so I think they've kind of taken it and just placed it underground for now, under covers. But it'll be something along these lines, I truly believe. Okay, so let's go a little further here. You noticed here it says, anyone who takes the mark of the beast, they're damned. They will go to hell. Why would people be judged in this way who receive it? That seems so harsh. If times are that hard, if it's a requirement of society in order to buy and sell and trade and to be able to function and provide for your family, then why would they be judged for eternity for that decision? I believe it's because they're choosing to look to Satan and man for their needs. In my mind, this has to be a cognitive, thought-out, free will decision because of the severe consequences. I think people will realize and know to take this is to have allegiance to the Antichrist and to the world system. And so there will be severe consequences. They will be considered reprobate by God. No opportunity to be saved after that. We know that also it says in the letter to the Church of Thessalonica that he will send strong delusion to people like this that they might believe a lie. Even the spiritual battle will be over. They will just mindlessly follow the Antichrist. I also believe it's because of the spiritual decision to reject God and follow Satan. But I do want to say this, there's obviously spiritual repercussions from this decision. But there's information that's coming out now, this nanotechnology, which is it's fairly new, but it's being developed at a pretty rapid rate. It would go along in the same family or the same line as this Verichip. But they're saying now that it is being developed to alter one's ability to think. Just, how after taking certain drugs, you're never the same. it just does damage that will never be recovered or overcome, there's a good chance that those who take the mark of the beast, it will be similar to this. This nanotechnology will alter the mind, and they will never truly be able to overcome it. So think about it. There's spiritual repercussions. God will send the strong delusion. They are reprobate, no chance of salvation, so they will just rush headlong on into sin and the ways of the world. But there also could be physical repercussions as well. The people that develop stuff like this, the Antichrist and the world system, it will be used for evil. And if there is something that they can do that would keep one from having their own free will, and that the masses of the world would be more easily controlled and swayed, don't think for a moment that they won't do that. So, this mark of hell, it will change one physically, mentally, and spiritually. Let's look at a few more verses concerning not just the mark of the beast, but the mark of God. Deuteronomy 11:18, and as we look at this, have you ever thought about why it says the mark of the beast will be in the hand, and the verichip is usually implanted along in here, or it says, we talk about in the hand or in the forehead is where the placement of the mark will be. So Satan's a counterfeit. We've talked about this multiple times. He always counterfeits the work of God. So Deuteronomy 11:18, therefore you shall lay up these words of mine in your heart and in your soul, and you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, on the forehead. And so we can see here that in Deuteronomy 11:18, he commands them the word of God, the law of God, the Torah. He's saying, I want that to be on you. I want it to be obvious. It will seal you. It will not only seal you, but it will also mark you. Revelation 7:3 says, do not harm the earth, the sea, or the trees till we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. And so God marks his people, and now we see Satan counterfeiting that. God desired for the people to always remember that they belonged to him. They were his possession, his special treasure. He told them to bind it on their foreheads and on their hands. Now we know the forehead would represent the mind, the inner man, the intellect, the will, the seat of emotions. And Jesus said it is what is on the inside that defiles a man. And so we know that it's very important about the inner man. It even says that, what is in the heart comes out of the mouth. And so Christ taught over and over that you can't wash the outside and leave the inside uncleansed. And, so on the forehead, the head represents the inner man and the will and the mind and the heart. And so we see here, he's saying, I want possession of that inner man. The hand represents action, labor, work. We do everything from point and direct to work, to toil, to discipline, to talk. I can't talk without my hands. If you were to tie my hands, I guess I'd be mute probably. But the hand represents that action, labor, and work. We work for whom we serve. Romans 6:16 says, whomever we obey, we are their servants. And so whomever we're working for, whomever we're obeying, we are their servants. We know the Jews took these verses literally and created what's called the phylacteries. These are leather pouches with the scriptures inside that they bind on their forehead and their arms during prayer. Here's a picture of that. So the gist of what I'm trying to say here is, if you've ever wondered why is the mark on the hand or on the forehead, it's because it is a dilution of God and his ways. It is a counterfeit. And so here again, just like God wants all of us, Satan wants to come along and he wants to deceive people into taking his mark on the forehead or on the hand. And so I really believe that's why there will be damnation to those who receive this mark. It is more than just a mark. It is more than just buying and selling. It is allegiance to a master. And I believe that those who receive it will know it for just that. They will make a decision to follow Satan because that seems to be just the better decision. They have no use for, they see no purpose in submitting to God. They see no purpose in being saved by Him, but rather they choose to do it their way, man's way, and ultimately they are servants to Satan. Okay? So we've looked here at, what is the mark, what it could be someday in the future. We've looked at the damnation that comes from it and why it's so severe according to God. And we've also looked at the holy mark of God on His people. And that should still be represented today as we obey Him with the mind and the inner man, but also our acts and our actions and our obedience should prove our servanthood to Him. Okay, so finally, let's look at this 666. It says, let he who has wisdom know this and determine it. It is the number of a man, 666. I'll be the first to say I've always wondered about this, and I don't think anyone knows for sure. But let's look at some of the meanings of this numerology of the number 6 in the Bible. First of all, 6 symbolizes man. 7 symbolizes God. 6 is under 7. 7 is the number of completion. Think about how 6 and 7 are used in the Word. We're going to look at a little bit of that. God created the earth in 6 days. He rested on the 7th. He appointed 6 days of labor. The land was to be sown for 6 years and then given a Sabbath's rest on the 7th as well. The Hebrew slave was to serve for 6 years and be set free in the 7th. Moses waited for 6 days on the mount before God spoke. 6 days, the Hebrew people marched around Jericho before the walls fell on the 7th. It was 6 days after Jesus foretold of His coming glory before He was transfigured on the mount before the 3 disciples. Nebuchadnezzar's image, which was set up, which the Hebrew children Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego denied worshiping. They were thrown into the fiery furnace. That image was 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide. So you can see there the different uses of 6 in the Word. Also notice that the 666, it's 3. 3 is the number for the divine. We know that the Holy Trinity is made up of 3, but here we have the number of man 3 times. And so I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I want us to notice that. 7 symbolizes perfection or fullness. It is it is used more frequently in the Scriptures than any other number. God ordained 7 biblical feasts. Enoch was the 7th from Adam and was translated. Jacob served 7 years for Rachel. There was a 7-branched candlestick in the temple, the menorah. Job had 7 sons. Solomon spent 7 years building the temple. The blood was to be sprinkled on the mercy seat 7 times. Naaman washed 7 times in the Jordan. Jesus made 7 I am statements about Himself in the Gospels. He also made 7 statements from the cross. One day He will be honored with a 7-fold doxology by every creature on earth. In Revelation 5:12 it says, "Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power, riches, wisdom, strength, honor, glory, blessing." 7. The number 7 appears more than 30 times in the book of Revelation. There are 7 Revelation churches, 7 candlesticks, 7 spirits before His throne. The Lamb, representing Christ, has 7 horns and 7 eyes. There are 7 seal judgments that present the world ruined by man. There are 7 trumpet judgments that present the world ruined by Satan. And there are 7 bowl judgments that present the world reclaimed by God. Complete destruction, complete desolation, complete redemption. Even God's judgment is meted out in perfect proportion. The 666 number, it may be as simple as it being the number of man and people choosing it instead of looking to God and His perfection represented by 7. However, I really think it's probably more than that. But I just don't think it's for us to know right now. I don't know exactly what it is or its full meaning, but I do believe that when the time is right, it will be very clear. Think about this. The nation of Israel. Isaiah 66:8 said, "Who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such things? Shall the earth be made to give birth in one day, or shall a nation be born at once?" That verse didn't make much sense until 1948 when the Jewish nation was reborn. And so at the time, it's very clear. But before, there's just not really a context to place it in. And I believe that God does not always reveal all things until the timing is right. I think the number is given so that the saints will not be fooled. When they see the fulfillment of the mark and then the number 666 and they see it for what it really means, I think it will be clear and they will have confirmation that this truly is the Antichrist. So this is just a little bit of information. I don't claim to know everything, but some biblical and some secular information about the mark of the beast and what it may look like someday to come, and just the verses that describe it. We don't want to see a devil behind every rock, or every time the car won't start, we don't want to say, "Oh, it's Satan." Don't get me wrong, there's usually a spiritual reason behind almost every physical problem. But what I'm saying is we don't want to call everything the mark of the beast. Now, absolutely, people have said that the Social Security number was the mark of the beast when they gave everyone a Social Security number. The debit card, with the cashless society, the cell phone and computers and technology. Absolutely, just like we talked about in Matthew 24, the birth pangs and the signs of the times, and we're moving in a prescribed order, and everything is building up to the end times and these events. But just because something is moving in that direction does not necessarily mean that it is actually the fulfillment of that. So I don't believe we see the mark of the beast right now. And don't get me wrong, I would not take that Verichip for love or money. There's no way I would take it. But right now, we don't have that mark of the beast. It's not the right time. And using debit cards or cell phones, I don't think God is necessarily going to judge us for that. But I think all things should be done in moderation. I think all things should be done with wisdom. And I believe that nothing should come before our God. And we should serve Him with our whole heart, soul, and mind. Everything we do should be for His glory. And as we live our lives out, just like we saw in Deuteronomy 11 there, it should be very obvious who this mind and this inner man belongs to. It should be very obvious who these hands and this body is serving and who I'm working for. And I pray that all of us are working to build the kingdom of heaven. Now may the Lord bless you and may He keep you. May He make His face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May He lift His countenance upon you and give you peace. Blessings.